Landlords from Hell. When I was in my early 20s and living in Chicago, I wasn't making much money. When I found this apartment, it was too good to be true. The top floor of a duplex with 6 rooms for $775 a month. The agent who showed me the apartment stressed to me that the landlords were very religious. I didn't have a problem with that, even if it did sound a little ominous. The landlords were an elderly couple that lived downstairs. They seemed okay at first. When I saw them in the yard, they would smile at me. I took good care of the house. Then, when they saw I was having my boyfriend over, things started to get really weird. One day I was in my office writing. I hear a knock at the door. I open it, and it's the old lady from downstairs. Before I can say hello, she says, "Have you ever gotten an abortion?" I just shut the door in her face. No, thanks. This was a colossal mistake. The house was laid out kind of weird. There was a door at the bottom of a flight of stairs that I thought led to a communal laundry room. But after accidentally opening it once, I discovered it led directly into my landlord's living room. I unfortunately learned this the hard way. I was in my kitchen cooking. My boyfriend was at work and I was by myself when I heard what sounded like the click of a door. "Okay," I say out loud. "What the fuck was that?" I didn't really make the connection. It could have been the door that led into their living room. I walk into the hallway and look around. I don't see anyone at the end of the hallway. I poke my head into all of the rooms. Nobody there. Then I look down the staircase leading to their house, and the neighbor lady is standing there, staring me down. I screamed. She flinched and stepped back into her apartment and swung the door shut. After that, every time I left the house, and I spent every possible moment out of the house after that incident, I would come back, and something would have been moved. A window would be shut. Once, the shower was dripping and my towel was damp. I couldn't lock the door because since it was technically a door to their house, they were the only ones with the key. The knocking got so frequent, 3 or 4 times a day, that me and my boyfriend propped up an old mattress so we wouldn't have to hear it while we slept. The second to last straw was when I opened the door for work and the stairs were gone. I physically could not leave my house because there were no stairs. They had been dismantled and were sitting on their porch. I called them repeatedly, but they didn't answer. Finally, their son came out of the house and explained that they were remodeling their porch. He told me I had to cut through their apartment downstairs. I descended the stairs and opened the door, and they were both sitting at their filthy kitchen table, staring at me. The phone was in its cradle. They must have heard it ringing. They kept staring at me with this blank look on their faces. I crossed their kitchen and left out their back door. A few days later, I came home from my job and noticed the bathroom floor was almost completely flooded, like somebody left a faucet on or the shower on. The old woman, seeing that I had come home, came upstairs and knocked, screaming at me that I had flooded the bathroom and that her son had to come fix it. I was so run down at this point that I just told her it was okay. Her son comes by a few hours later. He is shit-faced. I open the door and tell him that I need an hour or so before he comes, and he picks something up and swings it at me. It was a massive wrench. I somehow duck out of the way, and he stumbles over. I book it down the newly repaired stairs as quickly as possible and call the police. They come by and take down a complaint, but claim since there was no physical contact, they can't do anything. I learned later that the old couple has a daughter on the force. In the middle of the night, Me, my boyfriend, and several of his friends packed all of our stuff into a Chevy Astro. We lived in hotels in the van for a month until we found another house. They never attempted to contact us again. Old landlords, let's not meet again.
The attendant told us his name was Reed. He was sitting in the back of the cage, almost as if he were waiting for something. His eyes settled on us. All the other dogs were barking loudly, rattling in their cages. Reed just stared. "What do you think?" Bill asked. "I don't know," I said, honestly. I had been hoping for a dog that looked like it wanted to be adopted. He seems a bit distant. "He's just scared, is all," Bill said. "I really think that's the one. Nice and quiet." I shouldn't have listened, but I let him talk me into it. Reed was in the back seat when we were driving home minutes later. When we got home, he was completely disinterested in the food we'd bought. I had never seen a dog refuse to eat and walk away from a freshly placed bowl. "That's weird," I told Bill. "He's just getting used to things," Bill said. But he wasn't. Days passed, and Reed didn't eat. I tried several different brands. None worked. He would just sit and stare at us while we watched TV. Finally, in desperation, I called the shelter. I asked if there was anyone there who might have known anything about Reed. "He's not eating," I told them. "I'm worried he's sick." "He's definitely not sick," the vet told me. "We did a pretty thorough checkup, and Reed's in fine condition. I did see some signs of abuse from the previous owner, but nothing that hasn't already healed. Unfortunately, we see that a lot. Maybe he is emotionally distressed. We see that more than we'd like, too." "What did he eat when he was there?" "He wasn't even there 3 hours before you took him home," the vet told me. "The police brought him in. We checked him, and you checked him out." "Is there any way I could talk to the previous owner?" "Ordinarily, I'd say no for privacy reasons, but in this case, it's more than that." "What do you mean?" "The previous owner is dead. That's why we have Reed. The neighbors reported it. When the police arrived, they found the body of the old owner and Reed. According to my file here, the owner had been dead for more than 2 weeks before they found him." "2 weeks?" I asked, with amazement. "What did Reed eat for a week, if you say he's in fine condition?" The doctor fell silent for a moment. "That, I don't know." But I knew. I hung up the phone and turned to see Reed in the kitchen hallway, staring. His eyes seemed less patient now, and more desperate. I'm not sure how much longer before Reed decides to eat.
This story happened more than 10 years ago, when I was still a student. It has a few graphic details of animal harm and graphic violence, so discretion is advised. A bit of a backstory. As with most students, I was always broke and had a few ventures apart from my part-time job to bring me extra money. One of them was house and pet sitting. I have always had a love for animals, so when this couple contacted me to ask to house sit for them for the last few days before they returned from their overseas trip, as the last sitter had bailed on them and their 6-month-old golden retriever puppy would be alone, I jumped at the opportunity. The fact that they promised to pay me at the full 2-week fee for staying there less than a week made it just more appealing. Little did I know how bad it would turn out. I got the details, got the keys from the agent, and headed over to the house, as it was already after 5 p.m. and almost dark, as it was early spring. I got to the house, which was a really nice place, but it bordered a not-so-good area that was and still is prone to crime. House break-ins, robberies, etc. It did not bother me much, because, nothing will happen to me. I know young, naive. The first 4 nights went without a hitch, watching movies, jacuzzi, and just generally enjoying myself. The owners would have returned on the 5th day, fairly late at night. I went over to check on the doggo. I got a call from them about 10 p.m. saying their flight got delayed. They are going to stay in a hotel and do the 3.5-hour drive back the following morning, and asked if I could sleep there again that night, which was fine. I was already there and had my overnight bags still in my car. I called my dad to let him know of the plans, as I was still staying with my parents, and he specifically asked what the address was. I normally did not give them details like that, because I was old enough to look after myself. I still believe to this day that that probably saved my life. I eventually got back to bed about 1 a.m., and it felt like I have only slept 5 minutes when I was awoken to a window breaking, and I could hear movement and what sounded like footsteps running down the hallway. The first thing I did was grab my phone and just hit redial. Thanks to my old Motorola phone, redialing was as simple as pressing one button, as my dad was the last number that I had called, hoping that he wakes up from the call. I then dropped the phone in between the headboard and mattress in case my dad picks up that he can hear what is going on. I had barely done that when the first guy stormed through the bedroom door. I could see his silhouette, and he had a knife in his hand. When he saw me, he raised it and came at me. Now, one thing to those that is unfamiliar with South Africa and the crime is that robberies and house invasions usually are very brutal and violent. People get murdered or tortured if they in the slightest retaliate or not cooperate with the robbers. Out of instinct, I raised my legs back when he came at me, and when he came within reach, I kicked both legs out as hard as I can. Now, I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'3", and at that stage, I weighed about 100 kilograms, or 220 pounds, and I was fit and strong. My time not spent at the uni or work was at the gym. I could do an easy 250-pound bench, 350-pound squat. When I kicked and made contact with the guy, he completely lifted off the ground and shot into the wall. Luckily, the knife shot out of his hand as well. Before he got the chance to get up, I was on top of him, driving my right knee into his face, and in return, his head into the wall. I knew that my life depended on it, so I put in some extra force. The guy dropped like a sack of potatoes. But before I could get up, I heard the sound of a pistol cock, and I froze. It felt like all the blood drained from my body, and I became just numb. I remember the only thing that went through my head was that if he shot me, that I would rather die than be disabled, or dependent on other people that will have to take care of me. He stood like that with the pistol against my head for what felt like hours, but was probably less than 10 seconds. I did not move, and he eventually said, in very broken English, to get on the bed, face down. I panicked, but I thought if he wanted to shoot me, that he already would have done so. So I did as he said. He threw a blanket over me, and I turned into a fetal position with my back against the wall. So if they wanted to stab me, that I had my legs and arms in front to protect my body. Now by that time, I had forgotten that I had called my dad, and the guy that I had kneed is still down. I heard a third guy come into the room, and I could hear what sounded like Portuguese to me. I could not understand what they said, but I recognized it, as we used to go to Mozambique on holiday a lot, and that is the main language spoken there. The one guy tried to get the guy that I put down off the ground, while the others started to ransack the house, shoving valuables into a big bag. It was about at this time that I heard tires screeching and a car approaching at what sounded like Mach 1. The car skidded to a halt right in front of the gate, and I heard someone scream. It was my dad. The three inside the house panicked and ran out the back door and tried to jump the fence. My dad opened fire, shooting in their general direction. Now, I know my dad missed them on purpose, because if he wanted to hit them, he would, as he is not one of them, but the best shot that I know. And I'm not just saying that because he's my dad. He is an ex-Army Special Forces, or RESs,
for those in the know. Represented SA in the Clay Pigeon World Championships a couple of years. Has various regional pistol and rifle championship titles, and is a gunsmith by occupation. I've seen him hit golf balls at 50 meters with his pistol. Politics and the racial situation in the country would have had him in big trouble had he hit one of them. I grabbed the house keys and pressed the gate remote, and my dad called the police while he came in. I met him at the front door, and we walked out to the car to wait for the police. It took them over an hour to get there. Some excuse of no vehicle available. By that time, I had calmed down and started to look for the dog. I could not find her anywhere. I grabbed a flashlight from my dad and started scanning the surrounding yard. And as I got to the corner, I could see her laying on the ground. I got to her and saw she was dead. Later autopsies revealed she was poisoned, and the police found pieces of meat laced with poison near the fence. Poisoning is pretty standard practice in my country for dealing with dogs at a house or area that is targeted for a break-in or robbery. I was fuming, so sad. The police was also pretty useless and had a don't-give-a-shit attitude and barely took our statements. By that time, it was starting to get light. I retrieved my bag, phone, locked the house as good as I can without touching anything, and drove home behind my dad. Only when I got home, I got the story from my dad's side. He said he answered my call, only to hear the shouting and what sounded like fighting going on. And when I did not respond, he flew out of the house and raced over. Luckily, he asked me for the address the previous night, and he knows the area well to know exactly which house it is. Now, my dad got there pretty quickly, and he said he stayed on the line the whole time, only hanging up when he stopped at the gate. My parents' house is about 10 kilometers, 6 miles from there, through a residential area. It's normally about a 20-minute drive. The call duration was 7 minutes 13 seconds. I met the detective there later that day, gave my statement, they took fingerprints, etc., and the owners got back about the same time. The rest of the day was a blur as I came down from the shock and adrenaline. Now that is not where the story ends. About 7 or 8 months later, I got a call from the detective telling me they caught the guys and I must come to a lineup to point them out. I specifically told her that I did not see any of their faces as it was dark, and after the guy held the gun against my head, I was under the blanket and did not see anything. She assured me that they caught them on fingerprints and will show them to me beforehand, which might not be the ethically correct way to do it, but they wanted to have as much evidence as possible against them. You will understand why in a minute. I got to the police station, and unlike you see in the movies, there is no one-way glass or separate room. They bring the 3 guys into the room and make them stand against the wall. The one, which I was later told was the leader, which was the one I had kneed, looked at me with so much hate as I had never seen in my life. He had the eyes of someone that would slit your throat and not blink an eye. His name was Joseph Dragon Sambo. He pulled his hand up to his neck and made the slit my throat gesture. You know which one I mean. We left the room, and the detective gave me a copy of his rap sheet. Amongst others, 4 counts of murder, I think 8 to 9 for attempted murder, multiple assault, aggravated assault, over 100 of house break and robbery, rape. I was shocked. The detective told me that had I not taken him out first and fast that night, I would have definitely not gotten away so lightly. Now, this is also not where the story ends. 3 days later, I get another call from the detective saying that I should be careful as he had escaped from custody and they had not caught him yet. I was not worried too much, as the robbery wasn't at my house and I had changed cars, so he probably could not find me. Also, I got my firearm license and carried my pistol on me 24/7. I did not hear anything after that until about 2 years later when I saw the detective in the grocery shop. We started talking about the case, and she told me that he was killed during a home invasion. He broke into the wrong house, and the owner was waiting for him, pistol in hand. Shot him one in the stomach and one in the neck. and thanks to the slow response time of emergency services and police, he bled out on the guy's living room floor, ridding society of a piece of human garbage. I want to add a bit of info to this. All three that were caught were Mozambican nationals, undocumented and no fingerprints or ID in the system, essentially illegal immigrants. And it is of opinion in SA that more than 70% of all violent crime is done by illegal immigrants, mainly Mozambican, Zimbabwean, and Nigerian descent. It makes it fairly easy, because none of those countries have extradition to SA. So if it gets too hot, they just flee back over the border and nothing can be done to them. The whole ordeal has made me more vigilant, heightened my situational awareness, and made me a little paranoid to double and triple check all doors, locks, etc. Also, thanks to my heightened situational awareness, has allowed me to remove myself from a few potential dangerous situations in the years after the incident. But it has also robbed me of my peace of mind. I have since immigrated to a safer country, but I still sometimes wake up at night if I hear a noise. So to keep up with tradition, Joseph, we will never meet again, as you have passed. But to his cronies, or anyone that wants to try something similar, please do pay me a visit. I will arrange your swiftly departure and reunion with Joseph in hell. And to Joseph, I hope you died in agony for poisoning Daisy. Marcy found a flash drive under the mattress when she was changing the sheets on Emma's bed. We both found it odd. Why was our 5-year-old daughter, who can barely work a laptop, in possession of a flash drive? And why was she seemingly hiding it from us? As a parent, it's easy to jump to conclusions. A million different scenarios, each worse than the last, passed through my head when Marcy told me, and judging by the look on her face, her mind was running parallel. Somehow we both stayed calm. We agreed to check it out after Emma was asleep. We wouldn't even mention the flash drive to her until after we'd seen what was on it. That way we'd know how to approach her. Marcy led Emma upstairs and put her to bed around 9 o'clock that night. When she came back down 20 minutes later, I'd already plugged the drive into the back of the TV in the living room. She sat down next to me on the couch, and we navigated to the correct input. There was only one folder titled Mushi's Barnyard on the drive. We clicked into the folder, and 4 video files popped up. The thumbnail pictures for each video showed a cow hand puppet on a set, which looked like a farm. Each was between 20 and 24 minutes long. We turned on the first episode and watched a few minutes. The cow puppet, Mushi, talked about the alphabet and colors and a few other subjects that were perfectly common for a children's show. Marcy and I both sighed in relief. "It's just a TV show," Marcy said. "Thank God," I replied. "I wonder why Emma was hiding it." Marcy said. "Maybe she got it from Claire's brother." Claire Wilson was Emma's best friend. She lived a few blocks down the road with her parents and older brother Jason. From what I understand, Jason is a bit of a deadbeat. He's almost 30 and spends every waking second in the Wilsons' basement playing video games, smoking weed, and drinking with his buddies. "What do you mean?" I asked, starting to get worried again. Marcy chuckled. "Not in a bad way, hon. Claire's probably been watching this Mushi's Barnyard on TV and telling Emma how good it is. And since we don't have cable anymore, she stuck a finger at me in a jokingly accusatory way. Emma can't watch it." Marcy stood up, stretched, the universal sign for time to go to bed, and continued. "I'll bet they asked Claire's brother if he could help them, and he downloaded it illegally. He probably told him how he got it, and that's why she hid it from us." I turned Marcy's theory over in my head. It held water for sure, and after I approached it from a few different angles, I couldn't find a hole. Case solved. Marcy took the flash drive out of the TV, and put it in the odds and ends basket on top of the fridge. We talked briefly how we were going to approach Emma about this situation and decided that we would focus on the hiding aspect instead of the illegal downloading one. After that, we made our way to bed. I woke up a few hours later with a pit in my stomach. Even though Marcy's theory made sense, I couldn't think of a more logical one. Something didn't feel right. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table and Googled Mushi's Barnyard. No results. The pit in my stomach grew deeper. I decided not to wake Marcy up. It was past 4 in the morning, and she had to be up for work in less than an hour. As quietly as possible, I got out of bed, went down to the kitchen, fished the flash drive out of the basket on top of the fridge, and plugged it in. The first episode continued as I remembered. Alphabet, colors, singing, dancing, etc. By the time there were only a few minutes left, the pit in my stomach was all but gone. I'd resigned myself to paranoia. But then, it got weird. "Time for my favorite part of the show," Mushi sang in a high-pitched voice. "It's time to play. Let's help Annie." A woman appeared on the left side of the screen. Her hands were bound so tightly with rope that I could see red marks on either side. The rope trailed away from her wrists and continued off-screen. Her hair was greasy, and it looked like she hadn't showered in weeks. The look on her face said it all. She was terrified. I turned down the volume on the television and moved closer. This woman, Annie, just the sight of her was not normal for a children's show. The way she looked would, in itself, give Emma nightmares. "This is Annie, boys and girls," Mushi said. "Annie's in trouble, and it's up to you to help her. The farmers caught her stealing some corn, and they say the only way they'll let her go is if you help them with a few things." Annie sniffled a bit, and I saw the rope tighten briefly on her wrist, causing her to flinch. "What the farmers want you to do," Mushi continued, "is help them with their mouse problem." Mushi pulled out a gallon-sized plastic bag and laid it on the bench in front of him. "All you need to do is catch a mouse. I like to use cheese or peanut butter. Put it in a plastic bag, just like this one, and seal it as tight as you can. If enough of you boys and girls do that, then Annie will be just fine." I looked at the TV in awe. What was this? Why were they making children kill mice? And who the fuck was Annie? "I'll see you on the next episode, boys and girls," Mushi sang as a little tune played in the background. The video ended. After that, I watched the last 5 minutes of each of the other episodes, fast-forwarding until Annie came into the picture. In each episode, she looked skinnier and dirtier. Cuts and bruises appeared on her forearms and shoulders, and by episode 3, she was limping. In each episode, when Mushi introduced the "Let's Help Annie" bit, he explained that not enough kids had done what the farmers asked. It was the boys' and girls' fault that Annie looked worse in this episode. And in each episode, the farmers' demands got more worrisome. In episode 2, Mushi tells the kids to run away the next time they go to a store with their parents. In episode 3, he asks them to go out late at night, after their parents are in bed, and walk around for a bit. Both worrisome, sure. But episode 4 is the one that sent me flying up the stairs to wake up Marcy. It's a wonder that she understood anything that came out of my mouth. I was panicking, and it all came out like water from a busted hydrant. She rubbed my back to calm me down, but I could see that panic was starting to strike her too. Together, we went into Emma's room and woke her up. "We found the computer stick under your mattress, sweetie. We wanted to know, where did you get it?" Marcy asked. "Claire gave it to me," Emma responded, still rubbing the sleep from her eyes.
Where did she get it? I don't know, Mommy. Have you watched it? Has Claire watched it? I tried to, but Annie was too scary. I didn't kill any mice, Mommy, I swear. Emma's eyes began to glisten with tears. Am I in trouble? Absolutely not, sweetie. But I need you to tell me, has Claire watched it? Emma nodded. She said she watched almost all of them. She was going to watch the last show tonight. Marcy's head began to turn towards me, but I was at the top of the stairs before we made eye contact. Within a few seconds, I was out the front door and sprinting down the street towards Claire's parents' house. When I got there, I noticed that the front door was cracked open. Not much, only about the width of a broom handle, but enough to confirm my fear. I didn't have a weapon on me, and I couldn't find anything in the yard. I'd even forgotten my phone on the coffee table. As I sprinted back to my house to call the police, I knew I was too late. The police confirmed it shortly after. In the last episode of Mushi's Barnyard, Mushi says, "Good job, kids. You helped Annie. The farmers have decided to let her go, all thanks to your hard work. All you need to do is, after your parents go to bed, of course, call the number at the bottom of your screen, say your address, and unlock your front door. The farmers will drop her off at your house, and she'll be safe and sound."